But since the topic tonight is education, it seemed like a good idea, and project-based learning, it seemed like a good idea to have it here at WEA. We were planning on being out in the amphitheater, which is much nicer, much less traditional, which is sort of WEA's whole ship. But the rain threatened, and so here we are. And I apologize, it's probably a little more than here too. Sometimes I have things planned out way in advance, 3 months or so. Sometimes I don't. This is one of those times. So I don't know yet what's happening next month. I have a couple of feelers out there, but hopefully someone will bite. Let's see. If you're interested in getting on the email list and you're not already, there's a sign-up sheet right outside. And we send emails twice a month pretty much, so I won't be spamming. And I guess, so first, I should thank, a lot of thank yous. I thank Justin and Carrie for having the idea and helping me set the whole thing up. And Una Burns, right there, also here, for being our hostess tonight. And the PTO for helping out with the food and setting up and everything. So thank you all. A little bit of housekeeping, which I guess I'm not sure where the restroom is.
So there's 4 over in the middle.
And so normally what we do is we have one presenter, just a little bit out of the ordinary today, and then poo-poos afterwards. So please feel free to stick around and have some food and drinks and converse, ask more questions maybe, make some connections. So tonight we have a panel of 5 people, and the headliner is Dr. Ted Dintersmith, who went to Stanford University and started his career with analog devices.
This is really good. You know more about me than I do. It's like, wow.
Google my friends.
I've forgotten some of that.
And then worked for a while at Charles River Ventures before becoming an education advocate and apparently movie producer. Una Burns, our hostess, is a teacher here at WEA. Marty Fletcher is the director of Hawaii Community College at Bapanui. Gary Miller is at Pulu'ulua Elementary School, and Justin Brown is at Kealakekee High School. And we'll each have a little bit of perspective on how we can do things better. Yeah, be fine.
Thank you so much. Just for you. Oh, yeah, excellent. Got the right person.
So I guess the way we'll do this tonight is a little bit different than usual. So we'll have Dr. Dintersmith come and give some of his perspectives, his little bit of history, and pretty much whatever he wants to talk about. And then I'll have each of you tell a little bit about what you're doing, hoping you can tell us a little bit about WEA. And what you're doing, and especially along the lines of STEM education, all of you. And then you can ask questions of each other, and I'll ask the audience to hold off your questions for a while until they've gone for a while, and then at the end we'll have questions. It's a little bit out of the ordinary for this normal group. Okay, that's it.
Okay, good. I can just stand right here.
Whatever you'd like.
Yeah, awesome. No, it's great to be here. I've been here for 2.5 weeks. I have to give a special shout out to the person in the back, Joshua.
Yeah, Josh.
You don't know I was telling you today, I said if there were 49 other Joshes in the other 49 states, we'd actually have a really good chance to change education everywhere in the country. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my background because I spent most of it in innovation. So I was with a high-tech startup and then in venture capital with the firm. We were a really good firm. We backed names that the older people will know, MCI and Amgen. The younger people know Dropbox and Twitter. So we worked with top entrepreneurs. And I really, honestly, had nothing to do with education and nothing to do with film for most of my life. So it's very unlikely I'd be here tonight. But over a period of time, I became initially a little bit concerned, then quite a bit concerned, then alarmed. And the alarm kind of went like this. And so this is kind of the castor oil of what I have to say to people, which is innovation is increasing exponentially. And we've all taken exponential functions, right? And we've never used exponential functions. It's one of these things that's in the math curriculum we all at one point can answer a question about and then never use. And in the context of innovation, it's really important to understand that. So that means the degree of change and disruption in the next decade will be an order of magnitude or more than it was in the last decade. So I want to make that really tangible. About 10 years ago, we saw the first smartphone. So think about everything that changed from just that one invention in 10 years. And there were a bunch more, okay? So that level of disruption in 10 years past will not only be matched in the next 10 years, not only be twice as much, it will be 10 times as much or more. Which means none of us can imagine what it will be. And if we think we can, I can tell you I spent my career in a business with people that spent all their lives trying to guess what would happen. And at best, it was just who the heck knows. And so the one thing we can be sure of is this, and this is the wake-up call, I think, for everybody involved in education, for all the people here, but particularly for the younger kids. It is a certainty that in 10 years, if it's a routine job, if it's a job you just follow instructions, if it's a job that requires you to master a low-level skill, in 10 years that job will be gone. Okay, so just, if you go home tonight and say, I can't remember what this guy told me, remember that one thing. In 10 years, if it's a job that just means follow instructions, do simple low-level things, recall content, won't be here. It will be gone. And I want to make that extremely explicit. So about a year ago, I was at the TED event where they give the big TED Talks, and I met with a bunch of the absolute top technology officers from all the companies Amazon, Google, Microsoft. And the person from Google explained this. He said, about 6.5 years ago, a team came to Google, to the senior managers, and said, we'd like funding to work on this thing that we think we could actually pull off called a driverless car. And at that team, which now they're putting their career on hold, they're passionate about the potential for the driverless car. The most optimistic person in that team said, it will take us at least 20 years. There was a book written about 8 years ago by these guys, and you'll still see them quoted, and people still take them seriously about what's happening in the labor market. And the example they include, David Autor, A-U-T-O-R, the example they include of something that technology will never, ever do, the driverless car. And they go through in great detail all the complexity of a left-hand turn in traffic. Clearly, we'll never be able to automate that. Well, if you follow driverless cars, they're already substantially safer than people-driven cars. And so all that stuff is happening. And so consequences of that for education are profound. And when I started to then watch what was going on in school, honestly, and I've got a TEDx talk on this, it started with my kids. And I'd look at what they were doing in school, and I'd say, this doesn't make any sense. It's as though, this was my first naive take, it's as though school wanted to erase every characteristic from a kid that will be their best ally in a world of innovation, and with the aspirational goal of having kids come out of high school almost as good as a smartphone. I said, this can't make sense. I mean, I said, maybe it's just this school. And then I go visit other schools. I said, well, maybe it's just these 10 schools. And then I visit other schools. I said, maybe it's just these 50 schools. Maybe, and that led to this whole process that brings me here today to talk about film and education. As you realize when you go into the history of education, that was, in fact, the exact thing schools were designed to do. So it goes back to 1893. A bunch of people that said, what skills and character traits do our kids need to have lifetimes of jobs on an assembly line and not complain? So let's just get rid of every sense of creativity. Let's get rid of every sense of personal agency. Let's train them to do the same thing over and over again. And when I start to list the characteristics you need on an assembly line, I often say to people, just kind of, because you can tell I talk a little bit fast, I'll say, fast performance, routine, low-level tasks, never make a creative deviation, no errors, super time efficient. And if I just say those 5 phrases in isolation, you know what most people say back to me? They say, oh yeah, SAT test prep. and on the one hand, and it is funny, but on the other hand, it's real, right? Because that, in fact, is what happens with most kids in most schools. And so you play that forward, and what really alarmed me is if the structured jobs are going away, if school is essentially preparing kids for jobs that are vanishing, if the very characteristics, the things that you find in almost every five-year-old are no longer there. Honestly, if you want to be incredibly, we've got a young kid, if you want to be really optimistic about what will happen in our world, just visit some 5-year-olds, right? They ask a million questions, they think outside of the box, they stare down failure, they're bold, they're audacious, they just go with it, right? And so it's not that we have to put characteristics into our kids that aren't there, we just have to stop taking them out of them. And so I said, whoa, this is not a minor thing. And so I got going on it and decided to do a film because I felt that film could connect with people emotionally. I knew nothing about film, but I at least knew enough to go find a great director, which led to the film Most Likely to Succeed. And if you haven't seen it, I hope you will. And then just sort of a bunch of travel. But the thing, and then particularly with the younger people here, it's great to have this audience. The thing I really like to make, the point I want to make to the younger people is the fact that all these routine jobs are going away is bad. But it's not that bad, right? Because the jobs that are going away are exactly the job you never want. So the fact that somebody's standing in front of you saying there will not be a job in the economy that you wouldn't want to have, that's not really that bad of news, as long as you can create or invent your own job. And one of the quotes I love to use in my talks is from a senior person at Apple. And this has profound implications. He said, "We have decided that any employee that needs a manager is no longer employable." So think about that. If you need somebody to tell you what to do, we don't want to hire you. Because why not? I mean, if you're going to give explicit instructions, that will all be done by machine intelligence. The significance of that for what kids need to be good at coming through school is profound, right? If in fact you think that kids should be more and more responsible for their learning, if you think kids should be finding problems in and around their school or in their community and being able to solve them, learning how to learn, be almost like the old game Pac-Man, just gobbling up and solving these problems, those are the kids that are going to be in great shape, right? And I don't know how many of the younger kids here go to this school. Is that most or a lot? I mean, I was here in May. I was just blown away, and I was at HP. I've been at a bunch of the schools here. You guys are lucky, right? You're in schools that are unlike what 99% of the kids in the country are in. So you are getting those kinds of experiences. The other things I want to emphasize with kids, particularly are the one of the things that I think happens, and this is worth elaborating on a bit, but because it's happening to kids a lot in school, is they lose their boldness, they lose their fearlessness, and you just get over a period of time get conditioned to sort of do what you're told to do. Now that's not happening for the kids in these schools, but I'm just sort of making a generic observation. And the example, it comes to light for me in a couple ways, is a lot of my friends will say, could you meet with my son or daughter? They just graduated from school X. It's a famous school. Often it's one of the top ranked, most selective schools. They're back at home. I say, for how long? They say, not that long, just a year and a half. I say, okay, and what do they do most of the time? They say, well, it's a very tough job market. And honestly, it's had a little bit of an effect on them, so they are playing like 12 hours of video games in the basement a day. Do you think I should be worried? Yeah, maybe. And would you mind talking to my son or daughter just for some career advice? And I'm always happy to do that. And I'll talk to them, and this is a key, for the younger people here, if you remember anything, remember this, is I'll say to them, tell me about your strategy to get a great job. And they will, it is always a variant of this. Well, I've gone to 150 company websites. I filled in 117 online applications. I've sent 92 letters with my resume. And I say, and they say, nobody's really gotten back to me. I say, okay, what else have you done to get a really interesting job? And they'll look at me like I've got 3 heads. And I'll say, do you really think that online applications and letters are how you get a really good job? I mean, do you really think that's the way, is that the person you want to hire, is the person who thinks that they should just fill in an online application? I say, of course they're not going to hire you. That's like just the distraction out there that says do this so that, like we can channel all the uncreative kids into a path that just gets deleted. So I'll say, like, what are you doing to get it? Like, have you researched 3 or 4 or 5 companies you'd love to work for? No. Have you used LinkedIn to find somebody from your hometown that works in those companies and make a personal connection? No. Have you thought about something you're really good at that could help that company? No. I say, well, why not? They say, well, the website doesn't say I should do that. And it's like, there it is, right? There it is. If you think of the world as being, follow what the website says, follow what the curriculum said, follow, you will end up being that exact person that's not going to get yourself ahead in life, not going to be able to find a job. You're going to be the person that Apple says they don't want to hire. The other thing that's so amazing to me, I'm going to give a personal anecdote. So when I was in venture, I had a lot of people over the years, mostly not because of me, but mostly because my firm was a top-tier firm, but people would want to meet with me. And this is totally true. For 25 years, there were 2 approaches people took to try to get me to meet with me. One was they'd send me an email or a letter, of course, and I never hear from them again. So in their mindset, they're saying, I'm sending this letter to him. The very first thing he wants to do when he gets into the office is read the letter and resume from somebody looking for a job and carefully think about it and then get back to them. Of course, that's all his life is going to be about. And then when they haven't heard from me, they say, he must have really looked at it carefully and decided there wasn't quite the right person. That was one class. That was most, okay? The second class was they would send in the letter. They would call about 45 minutes later. Then they would call the next morning at 9:15. Then they call at 1 p.m. Then they call at 4:15. And then they call and they call and they call. And so finally, back when I had an admin, I'd say, this is creepy. Or something I put, the block call thing. Okay. So in 25, so I want you to think about this. In 25 years, one person did the following, okay? Younger person coming out of college, wanted to talk to me, got to know my admin, said, I know he's super busy. I sent him a letter. I'm sure he didn't have time to look at it, but I'd really love to talk to him. And would he be open to this? True story. They said, someday when he's in the office, and you'll know when he's in the office, could I just come in, sit in the lobby, I'll bring stuff to do. All I want to do is walk with him from the office to his car at the end of the day. I can tell him what I'm interested in and tell him how he could be helpful to me in just 3 or 4 minutes. So, question. She comes in, my admin comes in and says, this is what this person said. We've never really heard of this in the last 10 or 12 years. What do you think? So, front row, what do you think my answer was? Any answer? Actually, see, it's interesting. My answer was no. My answer was no. I will not make that person sit in the lobby until the end of the day to talk. Somebody that creative, somebody that bold, somebody that in 10 years is the only person that's taken a creative approach to meet with me, set up an hour for me to meet with them. I want to hear more. And so you think about this and you say, my gosh, and when I relate this, particularly to younger people, they say, well, somebody else might have been mad. Somebody else might have not done that. And I say, sure, somebody else might not have done that, but they're not answering your letter anyway. Like your downside is exactly 0. And your upside is you get a meeting. And so the thing is, as you guys are doing things, you've got this enormous ability, particularly as younger kids, that you can get to CEOs in this state. You can get to the most important adults you could ever imagine, because they're going to be blown away if you are willing to think creatively about how to get to them and say, I'm working on this project. You guys work on all these great projects, right? You guys are doing things to make the world better. And so when you start to think about the mindset, right, that we need kids to have coming through school, And as I say, you guys should all go home tonight and write a thank you note to your parents or your teacher or whatever for being in the types of schools you're in, because having been here, right, you're in schools that are actually encouraging you really, I hate to say it, but over and over again, that's what's happening in our country. And it's one of the things that makes me worry is that if a lot of kids come through school simply trained to kind of follow the instructions, do what they're told, boom, they may actually look good on paper. They may look like they're excelling. They may not look good on paper. They could be a large range of how they look on paper. In real life, there isn't a large range. Those kids are being set up for failure. And so you start to think about this, and it's why the film, I'm such a believer in my film, is because it shows kids learning differently. It shows kids taking responsibility for things, cutting across disciplines, doing things they really love to do. And my best advice, particularly for the younger people, is if you just have a pattern, and I don't know how many of you were in situations where, whether college is sky high in priority or moderately high or whatever. But one of the things I find is really troubling is the amount of time and effort that we encourage high school kids to put on something that looks good to somebody down the road, maybe. And the thing I really want to emphasize is, if you have a consistent history in your school, in your community, around your house, of finding problems, like nothing's perfect, right? As great as your schools are, there are things you could do to make them even better. As great as your community is, there are things there. One thing I say about my generation, we have not shortchanged the young kids in America on unsolved problems we failed to step up to. We have left you with an enormous playing field of problems. If you can just consistently say, because those are the people I wanted to interview. And I think those are the people any of these adults will tell you. These are the kids we are interested in meeting with, we want to hire, we want to work with. Is a young adult who has a pattern of saying, I saw this problem, I felt I could make a difference, I thought big and bold in terms of how to get to the adults that matter, to explain how I could plug in and contribute to this, and I did it. And it wasn't easy. I faced some setbacks. There were some things that didn't work, but I stayed at it, I stayed at it, and stayed at it. And as a result, this aspect of my school, this aspect around my house, this aspect of my community is now better as a result of my efforts, my perseverance, my creative problem-solving skills. If you have a resume that has that once, you will be unusual among young adults. If you have it twice, you will be remarkably unusual. And if you have a pattern of that, I don't care what else happens. I don't care what your grades are, your SAT scores, where you go to college. If you consistently find problems around you and make them better, learn the things you need to learn to do that, creatively draw on your community to help you be a powerful change agent, there's no stopping you. And so I'm glad to be here. We're going to have a great panel, and I'm happy to answer any questions as long as you guys want. But you guys are awesome. Thanks.
Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Una Burns. I work at WEA. Initially when I signed up for this, I thought I was going to be the person who opened the gate and closed the gate. But I end up in this illustrious and esteemed panel. It's as close as I'll ever get to a Dr. Ted talk, so that's great.
I don't even use that in restaurants.
Thank you very much. I was wearing this hat earlier and someone said, "You're making me nervous today, Miss Burns." And I was like, "Oh, that's a pretty good joke," because I've got my little neuron hat on here. But I wanted to wear this to remind us that we want you to think. It is so inspiring to stand here and have all these kids in front of us, and I'm sure you guys all feel the same. To see kids from other schools, to see kids from our school, to see a lot of our staff members, to see a lot of our parents and PTO, a lot of our community, some of our mentors. It's inspiring to work at WEA and to have this and to be surrounded by this. But what we're trying to make you do and what you make me do is think. And it's really important that we start to do a little bit more of that, to think about what we're doing in our work and also with respect to our being a good citizen. And we're hoping that as students of WEA and people who come to visit WEA that we can see this. Again, it was a great honour for us to be part of Dr. Ted's film, and we really appreciate that. We are a project-based school. We focus on marine science, environmental science, and also STEM. And at this time, I'd really like to pay homage to Rod over there. He's one of our mentors. We could not be a school without mentors. And we have other people here in our community. I can't even tell you how many hours this man has put in for us. and his patience working with us in our robotics program is just amazing. And some of our students here are well aware of what Rod has done for us and our robotics program and our STEM education here. So we really appreciate that. We really appreciate all our mentors, our parents and our students, and we hope that you appreciate us. We are trying really hard to make a difference. We do try to keep an approach of letting kids choose, letting kids get involved with authentic projects, something that means something to them, something that they can be passionate about. And hopefully if you get a chance to talk to some of our students later, they'll reiterate that for you. One of the great things about our school is we get to learn with them. I learn so much from these kids every day. It's pretty amazing, and I hope that they sometimes learn something from me. But what we're trying to do is make a difference, to be involved in the community, to give back to the community. And we can do that through our projects, and we hope that we make a difference in this community. We are doing something a little bit different, and I'm sure some of you probably know what we do, but for some of you you're probably like, well, how do you get your credits? How does all that work? And we also have to fit in there. So sometimes we're kind of like a round peg trying to fit into a square hole, but we do make it. We have successful students that leave here and go on to college. We also have students that go on into the work world. So we're trying to make sure every kid that comes here can get what they want out of this school. And that's what our goal is every day, that we try to get there, to get these kids to be good citizens of the world, to realize that we're in the 21st century. There's not a bell going off and you have to hop up off your seat and go to the next place. You won't hear any bells here at any time. Sometimes we don't know what time it is, and next thing you know, it's the end of the day, right? We're like, what? How did that happen? So this is we're trying our best to give you real 21st century learning. And we have started this, we've been at this for quite a while. Maybe we haven't perfected it yet, but I realize that a lot more schools are trying to do this, to do project-based learning. And one of my fellow Irishmen, Oscar Wilde, did say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and we hope that you would want to imitate what we do here. And we want to sort of help you do that. And that's, you know, one of the things about being a teacher and being a community teacher, that we can all help each other. I know we've received a lot of help from our community college members here. We do have a lot of our students that get to transition into college and do running start classes. So we know we get help from the community, and we always want to try to give back to that community. Again, it is so inspiring to see so many young people here tonight giving up their time, and I see that all the time at WEA. Kids being involved before school, after school, on weekends, trying to help out. And we're just hoping that we are getting, we're making them feel like they're successful and that they're appreciated, because we really do appreciate them. I really appreciate all my teachers that I deal with, and if they would all mind standing up, there's quite a lot of them here. Would you guys? These guys, if it wasn't for these people, I don't know what would be. PBL is not easy. It's a steep learning curve for all of us, teachers and students alike. But when you have a great team, teacher-wise, student-wise, and members of the community to help you, it makes it all so worthwhile. Every day here is a wonderful day. It's a challenge, but every day is a really, really great day. And again, I just want to thank you all, and especially again to Rod, our mentor. If I haven't really told you enough, I'll do a shameless plug. It's like I'm on a late night show. So here's my new, it's not a book, it's just a flyer. So we're having an open house, and I know we've got a lot more people who've got lots of wonderful things to say, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But we're having an open house, and it's Thursday the 9th. So this is somewhere where the students will be there, and they'll be presenting and talking a lot more about their projects and all about how they think. So if you wanted to join us, that is not coming up this Thursday, but the following Thursday. Hopefully we'll have better weather. We're really disappointed because we love our new campus. We've been here, it's our 3rd year here, and we're really excited to present to you out in Capico, which is our esteemed area out there. But hopefully you'll get a chance to come back, plug, and visit us again, and you can see around our campus. But again, I really wanted to thank what Dr. Teddy here has talked about, and the fact that we're all trying to help you guys and make you guys realize that you're very important to us. I'm getting old now. I'm going to be relying on you people here very shortly. So I'm really excited to see you all here, and I really thank you for this opportunity to talk a little bit about WEA and how important it is to me and to our teachers, our students and our community. So thank you very much.
I'm not going to stand up because I tend to slouch anyway when I'm standing up. So, but if you can't hear me at the back, just give me one of these and I'll try and project a little bit more. Yeah, being part of the large state-run university system, I sometimes feel like I'm a round peg trying to get out of being stuck in a square hole. Um, but being part of a big system, we have a lot of creativity around the edges, and as the newest campus in the University of Hawaii system, that puts us kind of at the edges, and we really want to capture the fact that we're new and that we have an opportunity to go a slightly different way, perhaps, than other institutions that have been around for a while. I wanted to echo and pick up on what Rod said about the importance of initiative and creativity. I also wanted to try and focus a little bit on what's special about this place here that we're also lucky to be in. And in a way, I want to ask you, especially the younger people that are here, what about the young people that aren't here tonight, that either don't have the confidence, they haven't found their way, they don't see themselves and have aspirations for themselves to the same extent that you guys do? And so that's the reason why we have this new campus in West Hawaii. West Hawaii, along with West Oahu, have the lowest college going rates in the state of Hawaii. And so to me, and I was in business and I was a marketing manager and a business person before I became an educator. To me, that's like gold. That's like big market opportunity. Okay. So I want to get more people on the higher education pathway. What else is special about this place here? We have a pretty small community. We have an amazing diversity of resources, whether it's natural resources, whether it's human, socioeconomic resources. So, and that kind of ties into the fact that, you know, the challenges that threaten career livelihood, the security, and even sustainability of our environment, they're not all just about sort of creative and technical and scientific solutions. They also include a need for skills and adaptability that combines your technical knowledge, your science, technology, engineering, and math knowledge with human communication and you know, being able to operate and understand people and being able to communicate and empathize with people. And actually, Thomas Friedman, who writes a lot about world economics and global future, he calls it STEMpathy. He says that the people that are going to be secure in their jobs are not the people that have great technical skills, but if you have a combination of great technical skills and human skills, then you're going to be okay. And I think that's really important to us here. So we've been sort of trying to say, okay, what's going to be unique about this new campus, both as part of Hawaii Community College and as a gateway to the UH system, universities for bachelor's degrees, and getting getting community feedback. We've decided that we're going to focus on science, culture, and conservation. And so those things kind of reflect the values of the people who are here. So we need to use this place to inspire all of the people that live here to become part of the opportunity of what this place is going to be in the future. And some of you will probably have a journey away, and hopefully many more of you than my generation will come back. I grew up on Oahu. I went to high school there. And I recently went to high school 40-year reunion, dating myself. But, you know, probably 2/3 of us were off somewhere else on the mainland of that. And I was lucky to be able to come back here. I was scattered as far as Australia, so I told people it took me 30 years to figure out I went to the wrong big island. So that's really important. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that one of the things we want to do, we have community college students. We're also reaching out to students that are not college bound. We've got a unique college scholarship program called the ELAMA program. If you know somebody who's not planning on going to college but should be, ask them to call up the campus and ask about the ELAMA scholarship program. But we need something to top off that pyramid. We want to launch an honors program for science, and there's a curriculum in the Hawaii Community College system called the Associate of Science and Natural Science. And it's designed to transfer you into a junior standing in a science major at the UH bachelor schools and at probably most schools. So we're looking to recruit college-ready students that might be thinking they should go somewhere else. We obviously want to reinforce their parents thinking that, well, maybe $7,000 for 2 years is better than $50,000 for 2 years. But even more importantly, in a community like ours, the real value, we're so rich in our diversity, is we want to make connections and networks. So if even the students that might ultimately want to go away and get a degree from somewhere else, they may or may not come back, but they'll be more able to come back if they're making networks. And part of that networking is also the opportunity for our college to be at the forefront in providing all of our students with internship opportunities, because we've got some amazing emerging industries along with the traditional industries of government, tourism, and health. But on the STEM side, we've got some amazing emerging industries, and we really want to create an internship program where every student can have a chance to explore these industries or to create some lasting connections that they can come back to when they're ready to work full time. So I just wanted to mention those things, and thank you all for giving me the chance to talk to you, and a wonderful chance to be at the table with all these colleagues.
Hi guys, I'm Carrie Miller. I think some of you know me as Mrs. Harris, but I'm Ms. Miller now, and I'm looking out at this room and realizing the talent that is here gathered today. And when I go into a room like this is sort of where I start, and I look out and I see Thane, who was interviewed. He might not remember this at all, but when we were having our Furlough Fridays, your voice spoke to me so loudly when we were picketing on one of those Fridays. And Sophie in the back, we have a Coder Dojo group on Fridays that meet, and Minter Werner and Minter Makoto are still talking about you and the way that you incremented your variable with recording your voice to figure out that solution. It was very unique. And so I look out here and I had half of you as students, and I also look at the adults in the room, and I know I've had many conversations with you, felt supported by you, and figure out ways that we together have a purpose to improve what's coming for this generation, which is selfishly improving what's going to take place in our own lives. Having said that, so I think about connections and I think about community. And when I think about connections, by the way, I teach at Hulualoa Elementary. Did I mention that? So when we're connecting and making our lessons, one of the models that has sort of emerged for me is that we have a triangle, and one angle is the student, one is the facilitator, and one is the professional or the expert. And that triangle can always be changing when we're in the right mindset. So when I look at this room, I know that we've done that with our Coder Dojo group. I know that we do that when we walk through a gallery. I know that we do that when we bring in the kapuna to work on a computer programming class with 4th graders. And so it's this kind of changing role. And with the dojo, one of the other mentors who've been working with Kayla Kehe Elementary now, added it to a square and made sure that the parent was a piece of it. And so I think creativity is also the heart of where I come from. Teaching has to be creative. If we're doing the curriculum, I think Dr. Dintersmith mentioned that employees, tenure, if you're just someone who's going to do what you're told to do, that's not necessarily what the employer is looking for. We need to be able to create our own paths, ask our own curious questions, develop a new solution. And so creativity is what, for me, the heart of what all of that is. And when we're creative teachers, we are creating creative environments. And if I'm not feeling creative, something's wrong. And I have to rethink, and I have to figure out, am I trying, what piece do I need to debug there? And then also I wanted to talk about authenticity. So when we're present, and when we're speaking, and as students, when we're authentically answering a question, that's when you're finding your voice. When you're authentically asking a question about what's curious to you, or even if it's in a reading assignment, looking at what do I have to answer, right? And figuring out on a need to know, need to learn basis what the task is that you've been given and where you can take it that inspires you. So creativity, authenticity, community, and creativity, did I say that? That's what thank you.
Hi, my name is Justin Brown, and I teach up at Calicut High School, and 21 of you are my students. So good job coming tonight and do your creative projects at home. So I want to pick up on a theme that Dr. Dinnersmith was talking about, which is education is in an existential identity crisis, whether it wants to admit it or not, based on the fact that the students are going to enter a world where you have we have an acceleration of paradigm shifting technologies, and our humanity and our civilization wasn't set up for that. So if we take one industry like transportation, right? The time in which walking around was the best way, the technology that was best for that was a lot of generations. And when people are like, hey, we could domesticate these animals, if we do that, we're going to have an edge. And it shifted the landscape. And those people that figured that out were able to transition and take over those societies that weren't at that level. And then a society maybe came along, and they're like, hey, let's go across that river. We can go to this new place. We have a boat. We're going to power that boat. We have a car. We have a train. We have a car. We have a plane. And the rate at which that's moving is slowing down. And it's slowed down to a point where we're seeing for the first time people having 2 transitions in their lifetime. So you might have been around like at that moment where you're like, hey, we got flights. And maybe it was in your lifetime that we went from pre-flight to post-flight. And that was a big shift, and it changed the nature of that industry and then changed the nature of what you needed to understand to work in that space. But you weren't necessarily around in 2 shifts, right? You didn't go from like walking to domesticated animals to flying in your lifetime. But that latency period from when an innovation comes out to when it becomes kind of an industry standard is really tightening. And education is an institution designed to canonize things, to look back and say, we can see currently or in the past, these are things that need to be passed on because they're important. And so as we defined the canon, right, when you talk about the Committee of 10, we defined a canon that's not our world right now, and we're still trying to define what needs to be learned, and the idea that you could canonize it, that you could say, man, if we could discreetly describe these skills and then innovatively and effectively deliver them to students, then they're going to be prepared to step into this world that has these paradigms. But the paradigms are shifting so quickly, and it's empowered by something called Moore's Law, and Gordon Moore lives on our island right here. And what computers did that we've never faced before, which forces a change, I think an ethical, a moral change in educators in looking at themselves as far as what they're doing, is that at a flat cost every 2 years, your processing capacity is doubling. And that type of exponential growth is something that the human brain will never take on. And so it's putting this downward pressure on all of these industries that we used to prepare kids well for. And so we're going to have to look forward and say, what are we preparing for our kids as far as workplace? And it's my belief, and I know many of you have heard me talk extensively about this belief, that right now you can pretty much guarantee that if a kid does everything that we tell them to do in school now, they will struggle their entire life to have a job that allows them to provide for their family anywhere in the world, much less a very expensive place like Hawaii. And there was this part of the social contract that said, we're going to compel you to come to school. This new idea that said, like, don't go out and learn things kind of locally or based on what you're passionate about at 13. We're going to compel you, and we have this set of information that if you learn, the back end means you can enter the community and get a variety of jobs. And I think that's our responsibility if we're compulsing them. And what if we're missing on our responsibility? What if a kid can go to our school and take all the classes that we ask them to take and learn all this stuff, and we missed on them ever being able to find a job? It's my belief that that's the reality that we're in. And I think people are like, but it's never been that way. You're right, it never has been that way, which is why we have to shift, and we have to shift really quickly. And my concern is that institutionally, if we don't shift, in our public schools in particular. If we don't shift in our public schools, the kids that are going to be left behind are the ones who are already most disadvantaged, right? That like some parents will jump into this, or some people will jump into this, and they'll put their kid in an after-school program, or they'll have the resources. You know, if you have resources, however the economy changes, you have an advantage to enter those markets, right? So someone who had a lot of affluence, you know, a kid at HPA or a kid at Punho or Iolani that had kind of that extra token, what if those are the only ones that are really kind of making it? And it's not too hard to imagine if the economy isn't valuing the skills that we've taught the kids, the automation putting this real pressure on in a way that we have a generation of kids that have a rudderless feeling, right? Like the Jeopardy guy, right? Ken Jennings said, because we've defined so maybe falsely that your worth in society deals with the work that you do. And if kids aren't able to get work anymore, right? And maybe we'll enter this world where we have a new social contract and people can go out and be like bohemian, like wonderfully creative, compassionate people. And I would love for a retoning of the social contract. Bill Gates 2 weeks ago had a nice article explaining how that might happen. Right now, some tech entrepreneurs in Oakland are looking at a citizen's wage. And maybe we'll go down that route that says we can now decouple your worth from work and say, just be free, because we've entered into an area of so much more production, because all this automation has created one of the three ways you change the economy, right? Distribution, innovation into a new sector, or efficiency. And you are able to affect the efficiency and the innovation so much higher that we've created more wealth, and we're going to distribute it, and our kids will be empowered to still find their dreams. Or maybe it's going to be a really cold world that says, like, we have no use for you economically, and so we're going to disregard you socially. And it's a bleak world that I don't like. I coach a robotics team. I absolutely hate robots. I'm like very against them. Like, I think this is a bad direction we're going in. I love the conversations that Hawking and Zuckerberg are having about stop working on AI. We're going to really screw ourselves over with this one. And maybe we'll put on the brakes, and maybe we'll transition things, but maybe we won't. And I don't want to. And every single day I try and work as hard as I can so that any kid that comes into my program where I can work with or I can touch, that I do everything I can for in that world, they have a place to share what they learned in this community. This empathy, this understanding of kind of an Ohana unit, this understanding of contribution to the broader world that says, hey, let's not be so like bleak and nihilistic, which is where I really think the technology is pushing us. Like, let's not hit all those dystopian realities that everyone sees in science fiction. Like, let's solve these problems together, because we're putting new cool problems on the table. We're solving things we've never done. The world's going to have these cool hovercrafts, and we're starting to like mess with time travel and some great exploration things. But if we leave our kids behind on this, the adults are going to be retired 30 years. Like, they're going to be taken care of. And they're going to be sucking into a system where our kids literally will not have a foot to stand on. And that's why I think it's so urgent to have a conversation and to look at locally what we can do to empower teachers, empower people in the community to come in and change that arc for our students. And if we don't, and we say, like, we've never had to do this before, we've never had to change so much before, we can just leave it a little bit like it is because that's where we feel comfortable. I think we will do that at our forever peril and be remembered as the generation that let kids permanently down, because there's not a remediation program to jump up if you're that far behind. So I'm excited that we're having this conversation and to have an interesting group of people, and I think now we get to talk to each other.
Take it away.
Just to interrupt the flow, I mean, I'm particularly interested in hearing questions from students. I know we're getting into them later, but I would encourage them even earlier if they've got some to jump in, because they always have such great questions.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
This is for Dr. T.
Ted, I will only respond to Ted from now on.
Ted.
Yes, thank you.
I'm Dr. D. That's
Okay,
why
Doc,
I'm Dr.
you're on.
T. Okay. How do you equate Common Core with what you said?
Okay. Maybe we should just talk about it. You know, I mean, there are 2 or 3 things about it. I mean, you know, if you look at the sensible approaches of Finland and Canada, they have standards. The standards are limited to 1 page per grade and subject. Finland's actually gotten rid of subjects. So, you know, my issues, I have 2 or 3 issues. One is it's very college centric. I think we let me just give a, these are points we'd make. I use the example all the time about, Woody Flowers started, we were talking, the first robotics program. He's a tenured professor at MIT. He got convinced that the kids at MIT were learning next to no science. He, on graduation, you can Google, this is fun, MIT graduation day light bulb, wire, battery. He gave a bunch of the graduating seniors 5 in AP Physics, 5 in Calculus BC, 800 on SAT, all A's in high school, except at MIT, 4 years at MIT, degree in engineering, can't light up a light bulb. And you sort of say, well, my gosh, how much science have these kids really learned? And the reality is with all these things, there's partly the standards. And I think a level of standards makes sense. I think they should be driven more by teachers. I think there should be more local input to what is valued by a community. The hard thing is, the stuff that really matters is very difficult to test and measure. And when somebody tells me we're going to do a test for creative problem solving, I say, good luck. And it's the real difference between authentic displays of real work that's done, where adults can come in and say, wow, that's great. Because when you display it, the kids know how good it is. No, nobody puts up something with 50 adults coming by that they can't explain and comes home saying, I did great, but the teacher sort of screwed me over. The other thing, I've got this in my book, but it's like it's the grading of these things is so hard, and it's sort of like this ivory tower, David Coleman, and I know him, and and I hate to be so negative about it, but this example, real example, I was talking to a journalist. She's 20 years award-winning journalist, undergraduate degree in literature from Yale, passionate about a Victorian literature, just for the heck of it took the 10th grade Park Language Arts Assessment and got a 79 when her challenging question was an essay on Victorian literature. And so it's like, I don't know, it's like, why do we feel compelled to roll these things into numbers? I mean, that's my, and so I hate to be, I'm not against standards, I'm certainly for accountability. I rarely meet teachers who don't want meaningful accountability. I think students respond better when they're getting real feedback, meaningful feedback. I just feel like, man, when you look at the math, I mean, I could go on all night about the math track, but when you talk about artificial, we have kids spend, would all the kids put their hands over their ears for a second? Kids spend grades 7 through 12 doing nothing other than low-level procedures you can dictate into a smartphone, and we call that math. That's not okay. So
I think, following up on that, and just kind of for everyone, when we say that we want something different, like everyone's going to say, like, yeah, we'd love it to be better. Where are all those talented people who are going to come in and bring in this innovation? As you traveled around the world, what have you seen about building capacity locally to make this pivot? Because I think we have the education system that we have anywhere that has it because of the people who've created it and the people that are making it, right?
Yeah.
And so what changes, like where have you seen, like when this is present, then we get something different, or when this is present, then it's a lot harder? Because we're not going to have like 100,000 engineers like drop into the Big Island and say like, we'd like to one-on-one mentor every single high school student and bring out this creative, disciplinary awesomeness.
I agree that leverage is local.
yeah, but then when you see kindergarten kids, as I have, getting really good at programming robotics or doing 3D printing, with teachers that don't know anything about it, but just willing to say, we're here. Maybe they won't figure it out quite as fast. Maybe they won't, we were talking about FIRST Robotics, maybe they won't get it done in the 6-week sprint or something. But I have enormous faith. I mean, the kids are natural learners, right? Kids want to learn. And so where I find the really powerful things are when you connect kids with real problems in their community, when you let them have a voice in identifying and shaping and constructing what they want to do, and when you surround them with adults that are supportive, caring, and sometimes the expertise can come from within the walls of the school, and sometimes it can come from really the adults outside. I mean, if you want a great advisor for something, you can find somebody, and they will respond to you. And so you start to look at that and you say, oh, and I want to follow up because on the, I mostly agree with your points about public school, private school. I will tell you, I have been to most of the top private schools in the country. The number of creative, interesting, problem-solving kids in those schools is very, very small. It's affluence and traditional school go hand in hand. Affluence and resourceful, tenacious problem-solving actually are inversely related. And a lot of those uber-rich kids have everything done for them from age 3. I mean, every car drive is an opportunity for SAT test prep. Every grade is an opportunity for the parents to run interference in the school to make it better. And so what I found was really interesting, right, is that the kids that we call the at-risk kids, you give them a real problem where they've got to fail. They're used to failing. They deal with it all the time in a really tough personal life. And I just say to people, my God, what if way better preparation in school is taking on messy real-world problems that matter and make your community better, and that actually not only narrow the achievement gap, it might actually flip it, right? Because it is, you probably see it, the kids that have just had everything done for them by their parents, they just are like these machines. Tell me what I need to do to get an A. What do I need to do to get an A? It's tragic in so many high schools. I've been to a lot of high schools and seen a lot of high school classes, and the only question the high school kids ask is, will this be on the test? Who wants to hire somebody that says, will this be on the test? Will this be on my performance review?
Yeah, one of the biggest things you learn at school is how to go to school. And that's a problem. But I did want to respond to this idea that education isn't changing at all, isn't aware. In fact, that if you take a longer view in history and you describe those critical events in social technological history where humanity made a leap forward, but during all those times, the model of teaching and learning was more individualized, more small group. So basically what we're finding is we're realizing, and grudgingly now, it has issues to do with economics and change management and workforce generational turnover and things like that go on to it. But whether it's the DOE and the K-12 sector, whether it's the University of Hawaii, any major university, there is an awareness within there that the 20th century industrial model of learning that was designed in 1893 by a bunch of presidents of Ivy League schools is not what we need, and thankfully that's not the one that got us to where we are anyway. It's probably a blip along the way, and we are getting away from that. So we are looking at more, I think, total person, more holistic kinds of learning, understanding also how the brain works is a big part of that. And we know that the techniques, the industrial techniques, don't even work. They're not even compatible with the way the brain works. So, the mind learns much more quickly and makes connections between the neurons much more quickly with open-ended problems rather than means-end kind of questions where there's a right answer. You learn better when there is no right answer, but there's a problem with many answers. So I think that I'm not quite as worried. I wish it was happening a lot quicker. I think the world is moving very quick, and that you'll see, some institutions and some communities, and that's where we're, like I said, the networking at the community level, the leverage that you can get locally, I think, is really going to be a key thing, as well as having people that want to go out and inspire their fellow community members to also see what opportunities there are, or just engage them and say, hey, you matter, where do you fit in with this, or come along and see what I'm doing here.
Our kids, some of them have them right now, they will come back and say that's one of the things, they learn how to organize their time. And, these may sound like really basic things. I know people talk about testing and all that kind of stuff. Yes, testing happens. And yes, we try to make sure that we challenge our kids to do well in their tests, but that's not what's that important anymore. It's about actually being a real world learner and being a good citizen and someone who's kind and respectful and can communicate and can advocate for themselves. And hopefully, be a good citizen for this 21st century where we find ourselves.
Great tag. I'm sorry I haven't seen your film yet, but I look forward to doing so. Did you, in all of your research, look at all in the homeschooling communities? Because a lot of the education there is tailored to individuals and takes place in real life settings.
Yeah. So the question, in case you didn't hear, was in the course of doing the film, I wrote a book with Tony Wagner, homeschooling. I not only researched it, we did it with our kids, and we did it for a while. I mean, it's there's no ideal solution in any ways, and some of our friends who have homeschooled have them just go through the some standard curriculum, and so it can be as underwhelming as a traditional school, and others, the kids just take off, and they really are supported to go every which way from Sunday. I mean, a lot of the challenge. I mean, if learning is a very social activity, and where I find the best learning is taking place is when the students are actually teaching each other. It's a funny thing. We've got in my film, so I won't take credit for this observation, but the chair of the Applied Physics Department of Harvard, Eric Mazur, is in our film, and I write about him a lot in my book because he also, like the MIT guy, thinks that most of the kids who go through everything perfect, A's in Harvard, have learned no science. But he says, like, who's better to teach a kid something? Somebody who's been teaching it for 20 years and it takes it as second nature, or somebody who just figured it out the day before. And so there's this enormous opportunity for students to critique each other, to give each other feedback. And so I think if you are taking a homeschooling approach, you need to make sure you have that social component built in. So, but I mean, we, with our kids, it was actually an inflection point for me as we traveled for a year. And this will give you an example. I was so paranoid. I was like, I had to get online. What curriculum? They were 5th and 4th graders, and we're traveling for a year, and I'm like so worried they're going to be impaired for life by falling behind. And then you realize, like, the world is a classroom, right? I mean, there's so much to be learned from the world. What was I doing with this crazy curriculum? So anyway, I want some student questions. I'm like on the record. We need some student questions. You guys can't let me down here. Yeah. Brave. Hey, let's give her up.
Don't screw it up, Lydia.
She will not. She will rise to the occasion.
Okay, so as some of us are going to college or getting ready to go into college, and there's still this kind of common core curriculum go into these programs, what's the best way to kind of expose ourselves to creative, hands-on, learning-based projects within trying to get good grades and get your degree?
So I mean, I'll take a crack at it, but you guys, the 2 or 3 things. I'd say one of the most important things I can say to high school kids is the most important factor of college is what your plan is for what you'll get out of it, not how hard that particular school is to get into. And if Frank Bruni wrote a book about that that's really interesting. Malcolm Gladwell looks at kids, it's very interesting. Like a kid that goes to an easier college to get into and excels actually does better in their career than somebody that gets into an uber competitive college, does really good work, but sort of believes they're now average or in the middle of the pack. And so there's, I know, like I've got a 20 and 18-year-old, so I'm not just speculating about what kids go through when they're in junior and senior year of high school. We put so much pressure. I mean, I always feel sorry for them because I'm telling you what you know. You take the SATs, it's not private, right? Your classmates all hear about this quickly. You get your decision letters back, it's not private. And so the thing I say is, like, admissions officers, it depends on where you're applying, but a lot of them are looking for interesting kids. And over and over, parents will say to me, this is a kiss of death. And this happens to me all the time when I give talks. The parent will come up to me and tell me about what we have done to prepare for, we are studying for SRTs, we are working on our essays, we took 12 AP courses in high school, we are taking Kumon tutoring after school, we. And then they'll circle back and say, I can't believe it. We didn't get into any of our top 10 choices. And we had, 760, 740, and we this and we that. And I said, you just need to find a college that's looking to take a team instead of your kid. That's what you mean. That was your mistake. You actually applied to colleges that were looking at the kid and not both of you. That was your mistake. And so, so oftentimes if you're doing really interesting things, there's this, the essay is a great way to express that. And you'd be amazed how many times admissions officers will look at somebody that's got great numbers, but there's no soul there. There's nothing about it. And the reference letters will often tell a story. They're sealed, right? And so you will have people say, yeah, this kid's really great at doing school or whatever. And so I would say it's like admissions to college is a crapshoot, right? So you can either jump through every single hoop you can imagine to have the best possible numbers and wonder what the heck you're doing with your high school life. Might get in, might get turned down. Or you can do stuff you really care about and be really interesting and be, running after the things you want. Might get in, might get turned down. But I mean, like, if it's a crapshoot anyway, and I'm eating, whatever it is, eating my own dog food. I mean, I gave my kids total permission. Neither of my kids spent 1 minute preparing for a standardized test. They each took one test once. And honestly, it didn't hurt at all. If your parents, I may be ruining some parents' nighttime. It's really true, because, and this is really important, you can live your high school life for what a 28-year-old college admissions officer wants. You do that, and you're going to end up living your college life for what a graduate school wants. Then you're going to end up living your graduate school life for what your first employer wants. And then you're going to end up living your first 8 years with one job for what the next job. You're going to get to be my age, and you're going to say, damn, I wish I had lived my life. And so as I said before, find problems you care about. Make a difference in them. It all will even out at the end. People will want to work with you because you're making your world better.
Are you a senior? Okay. Well, more and more, again, it's a process of us getting better, but one of the things we're doing in terms of local cooperation is offering more and more dual credit early college classes. Have you taken any early college? Or anybody here taking early college? Yeah. You'll find that Hey, Dr. Zinn.
I did actually. I went to, in high school in California, we had early college.
Oh, okay. I was thinking taking early college from
Again?
my institution. But that's a very, very well-supported strategy. And again, it links back to this kind of thing of unbundling the industrial model and letting people that are ready to do college work, even if they still get high school credit and get the college credit. Another comment is that with community colleges, you can have the best of both worlds. We have data that show that community college students that transfer into the UH schools do better than people that go there as freshmen and sophomores, as juniors and seniors. So that's an interesting kind of thing too, in terms of the point he made that sometimes it's better to be, I don't know if it's the right comparison, but a big fish at a small pond than a small fish in a big pond.
I have to go back. One more suggestion. It may be too late. I'm a huge fan of gap years, for one. And so keep that serious thought. The other thing, so seniors, it's too late. Juniors and younger. The other thing I would highly encourage you to do is, because as you know, so many people are going to ask you, with the best of intentions, so where are you applying? So what have you heard? As though it's any of their business. And it's very difficult when you're 15, 17, 8 years old to say to them, well, frankly, it's really not your business. But if you say, well, honestly, I'm thinking hard about taking a gap year, period. And suddenly all the screw, adults